Italia!
Buongiorno, buonasera, ciao a tutti milanisti nel mondo. Welcome everyone. Today we've got a bit of a special because we've got Shane on his rooftop with his beautiful church top there in Malaga. Unfortunately, Hasni can't be with us because he's got a family trip, but I'm sure he'll be watching. And yes, so I'm here from the UK calling in. So Shane, how you doing, man?
Oh, it's good. I think the church behind me is quite apt for. I think I've kind of needed to find God over the last couple of weeks because the stress that this team has put me under, it's just been awful. Apologies, I was away myself last week, so unfortunately I couldn't make it due to moving and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I think I've missed quite a lot. I mean, I caught the Frosinone result. Obviously, you guys covered it last week. And yeah, I seen the Dortmund game. We just seem to be kind of getting slowly more, just worse and worse. It's impressive in a way, but yeah, man. So how was your week overall? I mean,
It feels weird, doesn't it? Having a full week without any football midweek. It feels really strange, but we might need to get used to it soon. I hate to say it. Um, yeah, but it was kind of like thinking, what's he going to do? I'm going to have a bit of a guess that he's going to be resting players. I'm going to guess he's going to say Leao's not quite ready. He's going to say Benny needs a bit more of a break, all this kind of stuff. And we're going to talk about it in a minute, Shane, but it all comes to pass, doesn't it? That players are being rested, games are being risked prior to Champions League fixtures. So in a way, I don't know. The way I see it is, if we go out in the Champions League, if we go into third place, not sure if much will change because Europa League is still something that he might go after or try at least. But if we go out in fourth place, then we might end up in just Coppa d'Italia, and that's the discussion we need to have, which is, if I told you at the beginning of the summer, Shane, that we'd buy 10 players, spend 120 million in the transfer window, and by the 9th of December we're basically out of the league, what would you have said? Would you have said that's acceptable?
um, well, no, because I think we were discussing this when it all happened. I mean, so when Maldini kind of got booted the way he did, and then Tonali was sold, we had kind of said, well, okay, so the one saving grace that we could potentially take from all this, and especially with the new players coming in, we could say, okay, well, if it makes the team better and if it gets us sporting results and the success that we need, well, then we'll just have to shut up. But the thing is after 15 rounds, so this time last season, after 15 rounds, we had 4 more points. So we have lost 4 points.
Yeah.
So we've lost Maldini, we've lost Tonali, we've gained what? How many players did we get?
10 players. 10 players, I think it was.
So we've gained 10 players and we've lost 4 points. Make this make sense.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just not a good situation.
No.
I mean, and that kind of rolls us into, I guess, it's not going to be a positive podcast. I'm trying to spin it as best I can. It's kind of why I came up here, just to get a bit of positivity and sunlight into my soul, but it's not helping. But I guess, yeah, just moving on to that, right? So the game last night, Jon.
Yeah. So I don't know, Shane. I watched it obviously with no commentary. So I usually watch it with no commentary at all, just the stadium noise, which is really good because I don't get to hear any of these biased crap either from English commentators or otherwise here in the UK. So I've got to say, first thing, we were open, Like we played so open. There was absolutely nothing in front of the back four. One of the big takeaways I've got to say is that we don't we cannot keep putting reindeer in front of the back four or Musa. To be honest with you, you try and play that formation. You try and play Ruben Loftus. We lost the best of Ruben Loftus Cheek as well. Um, in the way he just looked lost at some point, and Atalanta were cutting us open at will. I mean, thank God CDK didn't score because he had a ridiculous chance. Um, but we got to a point where we were 1-1. Somehow we were 1-1, right? Lookman scored the first goal, and then Giroud scored the wonderful equaliser. And I'll say it, what a header, by the way, from a forensic corner. Absolutely incredible. But I just can't. You can say
I
one
think
of the.
you're. Can you hear me okay? I think your audio is dropping a bit.
Is it dropping?
Oh no, it's better now.
Oh, weird.
Okay, maybe it's just okay. It's just me. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. No, it seems better. Okay, my bad.
Lookman was a pain the entire match, really. But this point that we said pre-season, Shane, we saw in the friendlies where teams that have any attacking capability would be able to run straight through the middle of us.
Mm.
Happened in the Atalanta game, and I don't know. Purely doesn't seem to have learned any lessons at all. And by the way, CDK did get another assist um, against us, and he was either going to score or put an assist on us. Um, I don't know what to say, man. And then
Well, it could
Calabria
have
got the.
scored as well.
I mean, yeah,
I
Calabria got a
mean,
red card as well, which leaves us in good fun for the next game, mate. Because who did we not integrate into the squad over the last couple of games? You had Frosinone, Atalanta. You had the chance to bring in Simic. He did not do so. Now he's going to be forced to do something. Um, and Benny, I mean, tell me something, Shane. What's the point of bringing in Adley on the 87th minute? What does that do?
so there's two things I think. Um, so my key takeaway with the game was just how so going forward we we don't really seem to have much. I think we're still missing something in terms of link up,
Mm,
right? RLC, as good as he is, he's not that type of player for me. I'm not saying bring back Diaz by any means, but Diaz, tended to link up an awful lot better when he was playing his cap, right? So I
mm,
still think we are missing that kind of type of player. Arguably, if he gets his, SH1T together, CDK, even though, to be honest, I don't think he's that type of link up player either. But I'm kind of grasping at straws now because this is what desperation does to the human soul. But and like so, the key takeaway was just the lack of link up play, and there was no coherency as well when we were attacking their goal. It we have this annoying thing where we're just constantly just trying to just knock it and tap it into the box, and I get the whole possession play, you know. But when you're playing against the likes of Atalanta, who do the same thing and do it, when they're on form, they do it far more effectively, right?
yeah.
And that lends itself to counter-attacking very well. Which I mean, it was kind of like it was amazing to see two similar systems, but when Atalanta did it against us last night, it worked well. And when we
Mm,
did the same thing with arguably, we would hope better players because of the transfer window, I guess. And overall, it didn't work for us, and we just fell apart. Defensively, we were found out again and again and again. Um, it's just getting to the point. I understand completely that okay, we're low on players, injuries, which we're going to discuss a bit later in terms of our form. But when it gets to the point that Theo is being put in as a centre back, not only are you putting him in a position where I know arguably Frosinone was a different situation because he wasn't really put under much pressure and he was kind
mm,
of out anyway. But when you're not just doing two things, you're putting you're You're not just doing putting Theo in the incorrect position. You're also kind of taking him out of the game for an awful lot of it for from what he's good at, which is running forward.
Yeah.
And you're trying to expect, like you said, the likes of Reindeers and Musa to kind of sit back. I mean, I can't remember a time when I seen Musa, especially dropping back and actually offering help and solidity defensively last night. He just didn't
No.
seem there for me.
No.
Um, we're critically lacking. We're lacking like Benacer, to be honest. But what happens if Benacer is going to need a rest,
Well, listen, he probably is going to Afcon, right?
right?
And
So I mean,
Chucky.
and Chucky, right? Um, just overall, like someone said it to me, or say, like we were talking about it in the Milan Weekly Podcast group.
Mm.
Shout out, great, great content, guys. Check them out if you haven't seen them already. Um, we were chatting about it on the group last night. It was like, well, who do you get in if Pioli goes? And like, I would actually, unpopular opinion because I hate the guy, but I'd take Gasparini.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, he can work with young players. He's a track record of working with young players and getting great results with these young players. I mean, the
yeah.
type of football is somewhat similar.
It's
I
very
mean, why
aggressive.
are
It's
we?
very attacking.
It's
Yeah.
aggressive, right?
Mm.
So I mean,
Mm.
why are we? And it just seems. I think there's this bias though because of the 5-0. Was it the 5-0 where Gasparini was kind of dancing on the sideline,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He annoyed a lot of people that doing that.
right?
Yeah.
And I understand that because that really that kind of triggered me as well. But at the end of the day, it's he doesn't seem like he'd be a huge financial outlay, and I think he'd actually do quite well for us. So I mean, why not, right?
Why not? Why not? Indeed. Why? When people talk about there's no one to come in, everyone's too expensive. We have to start to look at how much we've lost financially through these performances. Specifically, in the Champions League group stage, we've only won one game. That means that we've lost, say, of the games we've played, what in the region of 8 to 10 million potentially. So that's not a situation where you kind of think that's already Pioli's wages covered. And then if you qualify for the next knockout round, there's another 10 million that comes in. So there comes a point where you kind of think that that argument falls. I'm going to say a name that you don't like, Shane. I'm going to say Abate, but and the reason I say that is because I, ultimately, this is all about the men's team. This is all about the cash cow that is the men's team, right? The core. So the Primavera are there to grow and supplement. And if you've got talent in there, use it for God's sake. Integrate it properly. Who else would know the qualities of those players better than Abate? That's my only point here. Is if you can look at that and you say Camarda or Simic or Chaka Traore, whatever you want to say, bring them on and integrate them appropriately in games, giving them appropriate time. And Abate, I feel, would do that because he would have no fear whatsoever of doing so. Purely seems to just not value youth at all, and he will only bring them in when injuries or suspensions force him to do so. By that time, those players have not spent any time in a competitive match getting integrated. And so, of course, the communication is going to be poor, and of course, they're going to look garbage. I think that's my point. Why I would say, listen, the youth team is the youth team. Are you seriously saying to me that the senior men's squad should be um, put at risk because we're protecting the Primavera by keeping their manager there? I don't think
It's
so.
it makes no sense. I mean, like if you think about it, look at
What's
an
up,
awful lot
Strasbourg,
of the.
Steve?
Hey, Steve, you all right? This is why I should keep an eye on the
That's all
chat.
right.
Keeps
I'll
me
shut
reminded.
them out if I can.
That's it, man. Hey, Steve. No, but good to see you, man. Um, so the thing is like keep me honest here, but like, didn't Luis Enrique come through the Barcelona youth team? like
Oh,
as in coach there. I know he was a player, obviously, but like didn't he coach there? And then he eventually
maybe
got into
Strasbourg
the
Steve can tell us.
yeah, because
Text
like
it up. He's just
Pio,
saying purely causing huge issues for you guys. It's not a question. Strasbourg,
Pio,
Steve, we're gonna go through a few results and we're gonna talk about them to really highlight the the screw ups
why
that
we're in
Pioli is
so much
doing.
trouble here. Yeah,
Yeah,
because like the thing is, I think an awful lot of the better known managers now started somewhere, right?
yeah, yeah,
And an awful lot of them would have started, at youth level and then kind
yeah,
of progressed up. So the thing is okay, like I don't, you know, the youth product isn't that precious. It's not like we're winning, youth champions leagues every year and we're
yeah.
dominating we're dominating the youth league. So I mean, give him a shot, right?
Give him a
Because
shot. Exactly. Give him a shot. Hey, thank you, Strasbourg. That's Steve. So Enrique managed Barca B from
he,
2008
there we
to
go.
2011. Thank you, sir.
You
Really
see,
useful to have you there.
yeah, because like I mean, it's people have to fucking start somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. But Shane, in the post game interview yesterday, and
Mm,
maybe we'll have a piece one day where we'll go through his post game interviews, because they're
mm.
shambolic. Yesterday, he said, uh, at points in the game, we were in control, we were better than them. And then he even said, well, we're still in the top four, and that is the objective. So actually, we're on line with what we're trying to do. And that's not acceptable. If I said, and I go back to the point, if I said to you at the start of the season that by the 9th of December, you would be 9 points behind the leaders of the league, nobody would have accepted that.
I
Nobody.
think it's so we had the excuse last year that Napoli were they came out of nowhere and dominated, and that
Yeah,
was okay because it was Napoli, no one cared.
yeah,
Inter do the same thing this year, not out of nowhere by the way, because they've been very competitive for the last God knows what, at least half decade,
yeah,
right? So they've been ridiculously competitive. Guaranteed, their owner has a different way of I guess viewing finances because he's one of those very rare owners nowadays that seems to actually put sporting success above balance sheets.
yeah,
It would be so
yeah,
nice to actually have an owner like that. But yeah, like we just I don't know. We seem to just be very content at making excuses.
yeah.
Um,
Exactly. And I don't feel like so. I think in any business, if you
mm,
had underperformed as much as he would have gone by now. To be honest with you, and Steve makes a good point here. Guardiola is another one that started managing Barcelona B. I mean,
right.
God, what more affirmation do you want? I just think,
And I know, like, look, I know Barcelona is a very high, like, that's a high metric, right? Because the thing is Barcelona, in terms of their youth, they tend to do an awful lot of things very well.
yeah,
And, like, because their youth is consistently, it's an amazing academy. But like when you look at that, right? So it's like, so if we're trying to aspire to get a youth system that is just as good as the Barcelona one, so you copy them, which means that
mm,
you actually promote the manager. When you see what you have in your senior team isn't working, well then promote Abate. It makes sense,
yeah.
you know.
Hey Kim, it's good to have a few
Like
guys on. So what we're going to do now is we've spoken about the Atalanta game and the shithousery. What I'm going to do is a share screen, and we're going to have a bit of a discussion on our form first, and then we're going to talk about a hot topic at the moment, which is our finances and what's been on the headlines this week. So again, as in previous weeks, let's do this screen share
hmm
chain and go here and we go here.
go for it.
Can you see this table? Now
Awesome.
I can't see comments, Shane. So
Oh, okay.
you let me know, right?
Give me a minute. Yep.
So the first point here is it's one that I wanted to bring, and Shane, please add as you want here. My point here is that throughout the season, it's been really obvious that Pioli has been making a conscious decision to rest players um, before Champions League fixtures. And so the proof is in our pre-Champions League results. And if you look here, October 22nd, you had AC Milan. We were at home to Juventus and we lost 1-0. Then we were at home to Udinese and we lost 1-0, which, by the way, remains their only win of the season. And now to add to the whole thing is pre-Newcastle, we've lost 3-2 to Atalanta. But it goes beyond that, right? Um, Losing the games is one thing, but something else to talk about here is the fact that we are not even putting out the best available teams pre-games. And so if we're going to let's go to the next slide. Here is the lineup against Juventus. And by the way, I'd say we lined up against Juventus like this. We went down to 10 men, and basically Pioli gave up the game with his subs. Doing that, you thought, okay, he's given up the game. He's put in players who are completely out of form, and we couldn't even fight back. But we then went and lost to PSG 3-0. Okay. So then we did our game against Udinese. Again, it was pre the PSG game. And so he went and decided, I'm going to try a 4-4-2 today, which turned out to be a complete disaster. We did nothing in that game and we lost it 1-0 at home. We did end up winning in the Champions League against PSG 2-1. But today, to this day, this remains the only Champions League game that we have won in our group phase. And then, of course, pre Newcastle, I was 100% sure he would not start Benny and he would not start Leao, but he would say afterwards that those players are ready. And of course, he didn't start Benny. We had a completely open back four where Atalanta were capable of running straight through the middle of us. And we lost 3-2. And I'll tell you, it could have been a lot worse. Manyan had to pull off quite a lot of saves. And CDK missed an absolute sitter as well. So who knows what the Newcastle result will be. But the point here is he has made a conscious decision to give up games prior to the Champions League. So have you got any comments on that, Shane?
Yeah. So, and I know you guys covered it last week and did a great job as well, by the way. But the Maldini interview, right? In
Yeah.
particular, the section where Maldini had said that Cardinale essentially mentioned to him that the expectation for the last year was that Milan qualify for the Europa from the UCL, so they drop down into the Europa League, so they finish
Yeah.
third, right, and then they go on
Yeah.
a run as deep as they can into the Europa League,
Yeah.
right? How is what we're doing any different?
Yeah.
So that's the
Exactly.
same. It's the same expectation, right? So it's literally the same expectation. I know, I understand completely, right? This is a very tough group, but it's also a tough group for Newcastle. It's also a tough group for PSG, and it's a tough group for Dortmund as well.
Hmm.
It's been a tough group. Dortmund have passed with flying colours, right?
Yes.
Um, you know, like we've essentially become like uh, an Italian italicized or Italianicized. Is that a word? But an Italianicized Arsenal. So in other
Oh,
words, we don't really care about sporting success because what really matters is that we have this flashy new stadium and because the balance streets look so great that uh, I mean,
does the balance sheet look great though, Shane? I think that's my question. Is the balance sheet looked great last year, but and there's a lot in the press about how
well,
much
see,
we
a lot of our fans seem to care about it and use that as a metric of success. So I'm
yeah,
assuming to them it really is important because I forgot that the whole reason that you support a football club isn't because of what they actually win. What you really
nice.
care about is how their accounts look, right?
Right. Exactly,
Um,
Shane.
yeah.
And I just want to make a point here. I just want to make a point. You just said earlier as well. Inter seem to have an owner that is basically running by the seat of his pants, but he's passionate about winning things, and they are doing so, right? Uh, on the other side, we've got a ownership who want to make money. But I have to stress this point. When we talk about the first profit that we've posted in 17 years, just so the fan base is clear, Our profit was 6 million euros. That's it. It wasn't some astronomical number. And
And we
again,
needed a
just
run into the Champions League semi final to get that, by the
right,
way.
right. And let's just compare. And I hate to do this. Inter, they made it to the final of the Champions League. They won the Coppa d'Italia, Super Cup champions, for multiple years in a row. I think 2 or 3 years in a row, actually. And you look at that, do you know what they did? They still posted, and this is not something to aspire to, but I just want to make the point here about owners wanting victory above money. They still posted an 85 million euro loss. So the discussion a lot in the fan base is that, at some point somebody's going to bite them, they're going to collapse, blah, blah, blah. Fine, say that if you want, but they will collapse with a bunch of will they collapse? First of all, who looks like a more attractive proposition? By the way, this is a question. You've got a club like ours that has some quite expensive assets in the players, but is completely underperforming in every competition. And nobody can argue with me that we're not underperforming in Serie A. I don't think anybody would say with the squad we have, we should be that far behind in only 15 games of the season, by the way. That is shocking. If we end up 20, 30 points behind the league
Steve,
leaders,
Steve
yeah,
just broke the internet with this, and this is so true.
tell me,
You know another difference between Inter and AC? One
yeah.
manager is declining, and the other one is improving.
Yes, that's a great point. And you've got to say things as you see them as they are. You can't just keep pretending, oh, Limone Inzaghi, he sucks and blah blah blah. No, he is a cup specialist manager. He has shown that time and time again, and now the league form is pretty unbelievable. They beat Udinese 4-0 last night. The same team that we gave the only victory of the season to at home, I just have to say. There's something else here, Shane, that I think you and I have to quickly mention, right? When we look at the league table, we can see that we are third. We've played a game more than Roma, who are, just behind us. But can we have please, a little bit of a focus on the number of conceded goals? Can you see the problem that we have here? We have we've played 15 games and we've conceded 18 goals. Do you understand the problem here? So we've got to also have a look at what's going on. 13 of these 18 goals have been conceded in the last 30 minutes of matches. Can you believe that?
That's
Um,
it. So there was a metric, right, that I
yeah.
pulled from I think it's Football Italia, trying to think of the original source. I'm blanking on it, but there was a very interesting stat, right, and that was so of all of the goals, right, this season that we've conceded. So 50% of all of the goals that we have conceded this season, I'm guessing that's home and away, but they've been
Mm.
conceded after the 60th minute, which means we don't have legs. We
No,
don't. We don't.
and we
Yeah.
can even look at it here on the side. Lecce 2, Milan 2. What happened in that game? Napoli 2, Milan 2. What happened in that game? It's time, and against last night against Atalanta, we gas out. We continuously do this, and it's really like you can't hide it anymore. There's nothing Pioli can say to hide the fact and keep saying we were really good, we were better than them up until this point. We destroyed them for the first half. The team is collapsing in second half of games.
And the
And
interesting thing is, right, here's the
yeah.
interesting thing. I think if it was, let's say, if Pioli was at Inter, right, I
Mhm.
think he would have a far better, uh, he would be doing like, I don't think they would gas out so much because they have so much strength in depth,
Mm.
right?
Well, it's a question of the guy. Is my point again last night? Why would you bring Adley on the 87th minute? Is it just to concede that final goal? Because he did lose his mark. He did nothing to defend that ball. But why would you bring him on as some kind of defensive midfielder, which we all know he's not, right?
Yep.
Why would you do it? So this guy, I'm telling you, man, he has lost us more money. So keeping him now is not doing anything for the club. It's literally bleeding money. And there's Another point I just want to make: in 2025, there's a club like World Cup tournament, right? Which has been expanded, which means that it's not just the winners of each league that goes through, or the winners of the Champions League that go through. So several clubs from each league will go through. And Milan, as they stand, if we go out of the Champions League, we will not have the sufficient numbers to qualify for the Club World Championship. And each club that qualifies for the Club World Championship is said to make 50 million euros just to qualify. And right now, the clubs that are marginally ahead of us are Juventus and Napoli. Now, can you imagine the loss right now is not just going out of the Champions League, which is a massive revenue loss. It's also potentially having a harmful effect years down the line. And in talking, financially as well for the club, it will mean that the only way forward this summer is to sell players. Right, Shane. Enough venting on that. I just wanted to bring this
So
point up.
there we are.
So let's talk about the finances at the club. And this is something that you found. So please go ahead and talk about it, Shane. But one thing I wanted to say is this has been hot in the news. There's been a lot of discussion, and some other members like Gio at MWP have asked us to have a look into this, what's going on, and the stories that Cardinale is going out looking for funds. So, yeah, Shane, please go ahead.
Okay, so during the week, news broke. So Elliott Management, they're the people that gave Cardinale a vendor loan. So essentially, the way a vendor loan works is if you're buying the products, the person that you're buying the product from, I guess in this case Milan, right, you actually take a loan out from them and agree to pay it back, obviously with interest, but most of the time. So the Redbird loan was 600 million from Elliott Management, 7% interest, right? So, Elliott Management, being Elliott Management, I know them very well. I was working for a company that they took over. They're ruthlessly efficient, and they don't, they do things by the book when it suits them. And they've wrote the book, so it's, you know, uh, I admire them in a way. But so Elliott Management this week had said that they wanted to call in the loan early. So they want the loan to be paid back a full year earlier than planned. So initially it was supposed to be 2025, I believe, and now it's 2024. So that gives Cardinale 1 year less to basically pay off the remainder of the 600 million. So due to that, Cardinale now has to go to potential investors and say, listen, will you give me 600 million? Because I have this project that I'm, trying to run into the ground, but I can't fund it. I'm having issues. So as a result of that, InvestCorp, and I think this is more of a fan fiction type thing. I don't really see any basis in reality in this.
Mm.
But apparently, Cardinale has approached, a few investors. One of them being InvestCorp to ask if they actually wanted to join them in, I guess co-owning Milan. So based on that, I wanted to have a discussion, knowing that InvestCorp, right, are they are a, like, let's say, Middle Eastern fund, and they are, we can only go by what previous similar funds have done to other clubs, right? So I wanted to pick PSG. Okay, so the reason why I wanted to pick PSG is when fans say that it doesn't matter what InvestCorp do because we'll still be, we're still going to have to abide by financial fair play. I wanted you to actually see this diagram and see the differences here in why financial fair play is a myth and why it doesn't exist, and why InvestCorp taking us over would be beneficial, right? So this is a team in the Liga, right? The viewing metrics for Liga, by the way, they're minimal, even compared to Serie A. They're, I think it's somewhere along. I think it's like a fifth. They get a fifth of the viewing figures annually, right? So the sponsorship just isn't there, right? Somehow you have a team in the Liga with very poor, viewing rights or viewing figures, right? They can afford a salary of just under, well, 5.6 million a week. Make that make sense.
Mm,
Okay. So, and you can also see it as well. Then for the season, their salary cap is just over 300 million. So again, this has to make sense, right? At some point. And the only thing that does make sense is financial fair play. Financial fair play doesn't exist with these guys because they just invent sponsorships and they tell their sponsors what they want to get paid to abide by financial fair play. Allegedly, I could be talking out my arse. This might not be, this probably isn't true, but I'll just say it, I'll just mention it as a possibility. So if these guys are doing that, and if InvestCorp want to come into this club and do the same thing, I'm all for it. I
mm,
mean, I'm completely all for it. If we can have a, if we can have someone in charge that has the hunger for sporting success that Zhang has at Inter, but unlike Zhang at Inter, that actually has money and liquidity to be able to pay for it, I'm saying just go ahead with it. Forget this Redbird experiment with Moneyball and trying to run things on the cheap. This is ridiculous. What are your thoughts
right.
on it, John?
Well, so the way I always veer to look at things, Shane, is I always think historically, right? I always think, for example, with the whole thing we spoke about last week, we spoke about Milan Medical, right? And we went back to the history. I just wanted to have a little bit of a look because I think it's really important to have a look at Redbird closer, Investcorp closer, and Elliott Management closer. So you clearly have. Personal knowledge of Elliott Management and what they've done to your previous company. But I just wanted to point out two things. One is financial fair play. There's a lot of blurb here, but the thing I wanted to highlight is that it says clubs have to meet the break even requirement, which means that they can only spend up to a certain limit more than they earn over a 3 year period. The limit varies depending on the assessment period and the contribution of the club owner or a related party. This kind of leaves a lot of gray area where someone can come in and, as Shane mentioned, secure amazing sponsorship deals that make no sense whatsoever. And up to the first 3 years, they can really spend into the club. Now, the thing I wanted to say about what Cardinale is doing is that he is going out looking for investors, and media is reporting in Italy that he's not offering them any shares in Milan. He basically wants to take the 600 million euro loan and transfer it out of Elliott. So someone say, please give me a 600 million loan. I will pay it back to you under new terms, but I'll use that money to pay off Elliott. So Elliott is off my back because he's paid 600 million to Elliott. He's bought the club for 1.2 billion euros, but there's this 600 million loan. And as Shane said, Elliott is saying we want it back earlier. Now, InvestCorp, so let's look at the picture, right? Um, InvestCorp are quite a big entity. They have a 50 billion they're $50 billion worth of assets as of April 2023. So they own Gucci. Some of the portfolio companies are Skrill or Money Bookers, Tiffany, and Gucci. So they are a behemoth. To give you an idea, InvestCorp have got assets of about 50 billion. Uh, Redbird, on the other hand, are a completely different level. So it's just like a step down from that. Now, let's just talk about this, right? Elliott Management, right? Who are still obviously owed a lot of money. They are the same guys that bought a 99.93% stake in AC Milan in 2018. Why did they do that? Because Yong Hong Lee defaulted on his loan that he had taken from Elliott Management of 415 million euros. So he defaulted on that. Elliott came along, said, well, you're not paying on it, we're going to grab the club and take it off you. Then they invested 50 million into the club. And as we know, they put in place Gazidis, they put in place their team. Um, Elliott Management is a monster, guys. They were founded in 1977 by Paul Singer, and they're a massive entity. They manage over $71 billion of assets as of 2022. So Cardinale and his Redbird entity, which by the way is worth about 7 billion in total, are really having to find someone to come in and say, look, I'm not going to give you any shares of AC Milan. I just want to take a loan from you. Can you come in and basically pay off Elliot? In essence, because I guess there's a bit of a fear about what Elliot are capable of doing. And what are Elliot capable of doing, guys? And I just wanted to make this point here. If you look into Elliot, guys, they have been involved in many high profile cases. So they are known to be very aggressive and sometimes controversial in terms of the tactics and influences in companies that they invest in. And I want to highlight Furlani is an Elliot man. He has been working for them for over a decade. So the CEO of AC Milan is an Elliott person, even though Cardinale is supposed to be the new owner. And this must be part of the deal with taking over the club. So Elliott have been involved in high-profile cases against Dell, AT&T, Twitter, SoftBank, eBay, even GSK. You know, they are known to have gone into this big pharma company, put an investment, bought a number of shares, and then said, we want to change the board. It's what they do, and they have got such a reputation to be a vulture fund that they have even forced nations to pay back their dues. And one of the things that you have to you definitely should read up on is what they did when Argentina defaulted on their funds. They came along and literally forced that nation to pay back billions and billions of dollars that they defaulted on. So these are not people to mess around with. And I really think that, when we're talking about uh, the way we are going forward, we really have to spend some time understanding what Redbird's assessment is of the club and the amount that we're losing right now. Um, how do you go forward if you cannot find someone to pay off the 600 million pound, 600 million euro loan and the 7% interest rate that it comes with? It must be scary to be told 2024, but guys, we're in December. 2024 is next year. So if they cannot find a buyer for the club, or alternatively, someone who will swap that loan out for their own, then Redbird are going to be in serious trouble. And just to say, if they don't pay it off, what I've read online is that if they don't pay off that loan, they are at risk of losing the 600 million they deposited in the club in the first place, and Elliot coming in and taking over the club again.
So it's Young Hung Lee Part Two, essentially, potentially.
Potentially. It, yeah. So,
Mm.
he needs to go out and Elliot doing this is not a surprise. When you look at Elliot's history, Shane, it's not a surprise, is it, that they are behaving this way? That they put Forlani
No.
there. So the question is, can Cardinale find an interested party in a club that's about to go out of the Champions League, a club that is out of the league race? It looks like the assets that we have are on the pitch. So what do you think that leads to in the summer? Tell me. You just tell me.
Yeah, so this is where it could get potentially dangerous. Like, think about in the worst case scenario that he needs to recoup as much of the 600 million as he can. I mean, what's the easiest way of doing that? You need to sell players, right?
Yeah,
And
exactly.
you need to sell high value assets. It's not
Yeah,
like we have a stadium yet that we can kind of turn around and say, oh, let's, do a Dortmund and sell the naming rights to the, I don't know, the Curva Sud to eBay or something like that. We don't have that luxury yet. So, I mean, if you think about it from, let's say, if you're an interested third party, right?
yeah,
If you're an interested third party, why if you can afford 600 million, you can afford 1.2 billion to own the full club. So why are you going to mess about and give someone 600 million who's throughout their actions are kind of devaluing the asset in a sense? Because what they're doing is, in terms of in terms of sporting success, we are getting markedly worse. So why would you give someone, half when you can have the full thing if you just wait for a year?
Do you know why? I think they don't have the funds. I think their entire fund is worth all of their assets are worth 7 billion. When you look at the
Mm.
size of Elliott, the history of Elliott, how long they've been going for,
It's
Redbird, I
over
think, was set
70,
up
wasn't
in.
it? I think,
Say that
yeah.
again.
So wasn't it over? Yeah, it was over 70 billion. So the assets for Elliott are over 70
70
billion,
billion. Yeah,
and
Invest called 50 billion, and
that's it.
Redbird set up in 2012, so relatively fresh, and 7 billion.
Yeah. Are you going to the Newcastle game? As you're based in England, John?
No, I will not.
Mm.
Steve, I'm not going. I know you're like thinking, what the hell? You should be going there.
No
Um,
one ever wants to go to Newcastle, Steve. And it's a great football team. No, honestly, I have a lot of respect for Newcastle and for the club, but the city itself, no one ever wants to go to Newcastle unless you have to.
I think these guys see. Okay, Steve, I'll say two things. We will line up as a very, very strong squad against you guys. I'll tell you. Benny and Leao are going to start the game.
Just so we can try and qualify for this Europa League that no, I
Yeah,
don't I,
because
like.
that's what I see it as. I see it
Yeah.
as like if unless there's a freak result there in the other game and PSG loses, right?
Mm.
If Dortmund beats PSG and we beat Newcastle, then we go through. Same thing. Newcastle beat us, then they go through. So it's pretty um, important for that sense. But if a freak result doesn't happen, then the game we have against Newcastle is to qualify for the Europa League,
You see,
right?
Dortmund win the Champions League. That, do you know what?
No, 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 no,
Consider
no. I think Steve says he sees Dortmund winning the game against PSG. I'm
no,
pretty
but you know
sure.
what? Like if you look at the group that Dortmund got out of, like
Mm.
I mean, Man City don't seem to be on form based on their. Well, I mean, look, I don't watch the
Yeah,
EPL so much, but
Steve's right. Steve's right. If PSG beat Dortmund, they go top of the group. And so that means
mm,
Dortmund goes second, and then they have to face potentially harder opposition. So, yeah, I completely agree with you. Dortmund at home are going to be an interesting proposition. And with PSG, we never know, right? They are all over the place. Sometimes they can put out something incredible, and sometimes they can give up games. So,
that's
you're
it.
right. It could happen. So, I mean, again, all right, I'll ask you this question, Shane. Knowing what we've seen, and what Pioli has done pre Champions League games in Serie A. He has clearly rested players because he has always wanted to win that Champions League game because the impact is that the revenues are so much greater than anything Serie A can ever deliver for us. Even winning Serie A does not compare to winning multiple games in the Champions League group and then also qualifying for the knockout rounds, right? It just
Hmm.
doesn't. So do you say to all the other fans that it's okay for Pioli to have done that,
So I
to have
think
given
there's
up games that way?
so there's no, it's that thing in life, right, where you have two columns, right? Let's pretend it's a magical spreadsheet. So you have two columns in life, right? Some people like to add three, but the main two columns you have in life are task and was it achieved or not, right? Some
Mm,
people like to add a third column in the middle, or reasons why it wasn't achieved, right?
mm,
But no one really cares. So it was either achieved or it wasn't, right? So if it wasn't achieved, right? Well, why are you still at the club? I think so. I mean, okay, I know I referred to this a couple of podcasts ago, but I want to bring it up again because I think it's vitally important here, right? We have a manager who essentially was given everything, according to reports, he was given everything he asked for in terms of players this transfer window, right? At a substantial cost to the club, because keep in mind, Tonali had to be sold that funded that, right? That funded a
yes,
part of that. So there was over
yes.
100, 100, what was it? 130 million, something like that.
120, I heard 120.
120 million, right? Overall, like paid, and new players bought in. So Pioli was given what he wanted in terms of players, right? And we've gotten markedly worse.
Mm.
Like factually, because we are 4 points behind where we were this time last season, that means that a guy that has cost you 120 million because of his projects, getting the players that he wanted, has gotten worse results. So what does that look like in the column that it's yes or no? Has he achieved anything? No. Has he cost you money? Yes. Are we going
Mm.
to struggle to get into the Europa? Yes, because Newcastle are not a joke, and Newcastle have a project, and Newcastle are becoming a seriously legitimate team, and I wish them the best.
Mm.
But yeah, this is it. Honestly, I think Pioli's already gone. I just think that the way that they're going to do this is they're just going to wait till they have a better opportunity to get someone else that they see fits the Moneyballs algorithm, and then they're just going to go with that. But they're not going to move until they have someone that they're convinced can actually add to the project. Because the way it's going, like there's far smaller clubs that have let managers go for far lesser things. I mean, look at how quickly Napoli kicked out what's his name, Garcia.
Yeah, but then Mazzari went and got the same number of losses as him, so much
Oh,
faster.
100%. Oh no, 100%, 100%, right? But and look, the thing is with Napoli,
Oh, but
historically
Shane,
not
but
such a big club, but
they
yeah.
qualified for the knockout rounds of the Champions League.
This is it. I mean, yeah, I know their group isn't, it's not as difficult as this one is. Sorry if you can hear the bells. It's just that time of day. Um, yeah, but no, I can't. I'm just. There is no way that a club that classes themselves as being a serious competitive club can have someone at a tenure that is completely implicitly failing at every role that they've been given. And not only that, but the more power and the more things that manager is being given to make his job easier, he's actually excelled at making things worse. So we can either sit here and talk, till the end of the season about how bad he is and how useless he is at his job, or we can actually say, you know what, because everyone at this point now automatically acknowledges that he's junk. So if we acknowledge that Pioli's junk, well then okay, I'd rather even go down, right? Even if we had a worse season than we've had so far, if we were trying something new, right? Then you can kind of say, okay, well, at least we tried something new, right, to get better results. Be it with Abate, right? Be it with, I don't know, Gasparini, be it with whoever, right? At least we tried, right? If we succeeded or not, that's a different matter, okay. But the fact that we all acknowledge, and everyone acknowledges now that this guy isn't what we need, and we're still contemplating that it's okay that he's at the club to destroy us further, this makes no sense to me. Like,
Mm.
people seriously need to wake up because it's just getting old now at this point.
The church bells are ringing for Pioli's human sacrifice.
I know, and they just stopped when they'd finished that. I think
I was gonna say
there's a bit of drama there. Yeah,
Pioli's beating 6 bells out of all the fan base. That was gonna be my dad joke. Oh, dude, uh, it's just very apt. I don't know, dude. We're like, if you look at several levels of the club, Shane, financially, objectively, like season objective wise. One thing I wanted to highlight about the Maldini interview is that I'm 100% sure that those objectives that he said, which was qualifying for Europa League and winning a knockout round, I think those were minimum objectives. As in, for the season, your absolute minimum objectives are, let's say you don't make it out of the Champions League group, but at least you qualify for the Europe, because then you can have a financial projection. The question is, what was Pioli's financial projection? And yesterday, in his interview, he said, our objective, first he was like, oh yeah, we want to be in the title race. Just think about weeks back on, and he said, we're angry because we want to be part of the conversation for the title race. Last night, that's not what he said. Last night, he said, of course, when you lose games like this, you have to look over your shoulder. But our objectives are top 4. So we're completely on target. That's a loser attitude. I'm sorry. He's just, as you said, that third column explanation why you didn't achieve your objectives. He's
It
he's
doesn't matter.
leaning on that. He's leaning on that so much,
Mm.
and we're getting nowhere with it. But I worry that on the club level, where we're talking about Redbird themselves, we're in trouble because they clearly have an issue with Elliot. Then they have to resolve it as quickly as they can. But then on the pitch level, as Strasbourg said, we have got a lot of acquisitions, but we're more unbalanced, which we've said right at the start of the season. We're more unbalanced and we're playing worse football. We have moments here and there against some very passive clubs where we really are able to take the game to them. But the moment anybody has any impetus to push us, we collapse. And not only that, we collapse during games. So our fitness level is very poor as well. So I don't see a way that this in any way improves until Pioli goes. And I think the sooner he does go, the more money we'll be able to save and the more whatever value we can build in the actual team. Um, yeah. It is a loser attitude. You're right, Strasbourg. You can't turn around and say that we wanted to be top four. And I hope I don't know, guys. Am I going to say this that I want Juventus to win the league?
No, I
Am I
feel the
going to
same
say
way.
that?
I feel the exact same way because if it's a trade off of we already know, you know, there's a trade off here, right? So the thing is I like that you're going to be listening to the banter from Inter fans for the next half a decade at least if they get to the second star first.
Yeah.
So
I mean, Inter
Juve,
are the favourites. They are playing the better football, the more attacking football. The only thing is that they clearly their Champions League journey will continue, and that will add pressure to their squad and to their own injury lists. So potentially they can drop levels. Juventus are doing what they do, which they showed against Napoli. Napoli were the ones with the ball. Napoli were the ones. I mean, Cavara's chance was ridiculous. If you watch that game, Cavara had an open goal, and he just absolutely he fired it into the crowd above the goal. But Juventus don't have any European competition because they got banned from playing in any European competition, and they are using that as a benefit in their league form, so they can shut out teams and then just hit them on one chance, that one shot on target, and they take away the 3 points. It's what they've done throughout the entire season. Allegri ball is horrible, but would you complain if you were so close to the top of the league playing that type of football? I wouldn't be. I'm not here to
not at
say
all.
I have a financially sound club. Uh, by the way, are we really? My point here is: are we really financially sound? Shane, are
Not
we really
no, not
financially
not if
sound?
not if Cardinale is panicking not to get investors.
Yeah, yeah. And would you say that a 6 million euro profit is something to say, yeah, we're really making a difference here? And you kind of think, all right, that's 6 million euros last season. We made it to the Champions League semi-final. What does that mean this season? Oh, if we go out of the Champions League now,
Oh no, there's
that's
the like just be prepared for the summer because a big player will have to be sacrificed at this point. And
I think so.
I don't even know if that big player would be enough to actually lead to reinvestment into the squad.
Yeah, no,
I think that big player just going is literally just to balance, to balance the books. So
yeah. I
like,
I do
you
think
know,
Theo is the one.
and I think I think Moynihan. And I think also as well, the same guys that are saying why the balance sheets are so important, remember that now because we've just become, we've become a feeder club.
I do. Yeah, no, you're right, Shane. So the question here is, can Cardinale find someone to actually buy the club? So you
Well,
can kind of
I mean,
say buy the
might
whole
be a
lot.
reason why Hosni isn't here today, if you know what I mean.
Hosni, come
Coincidence?
on. Let's have the Hosni Stadium,
That's it. You
Moneyball
heard it here
Stadium.
first. Money balls. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
Um,
But yeah,
But yeah,
Steve,
so
thank you for showing up, man.
yeah,
Also,
that's
as
been
well,
awesome.
not trying to rush it along, but what's happening is the battery on my laptop is nearly dying. So a bit of
Okay. We'll absolutely put it there. We'll stop it there, and we'll say next game is Champions League. Okay. Yeah,
yeah.
Steve, that is the point. 6 million profit, and we qualify for the semi-final. Just keep that in mind. First time we put a profit in 17 years, and that was the amount. It's what a lot of people don't talk about. They all talk about, oh, you guys put a huge profit. No, we didn't.
No,
No,
we didn't.
really,
We just weren't in the loss.
we just weren't in a loss.
Yeah.
And Inter making the final, winning the Super Cup, winning the Italian Coppa d'Italia, made an 85 million loss. Uh,
Mm.
so yeah, sure, they're in bigger trouble than us financially, but on the pitch, not at all. And I don't know who is going to. Someone comes in and weighs up Inter Milan versus Milan. Who do you go and invest in? Do you think someone who's got a 600 million pound loan to Elliot, someone who's got a batshit crazy owner who's winning everything? That's a question you've got to make. It's a decision you have to make. Um,
So,
but I don't pretend to be able to say I would invest in Milan because they made a £6 million profit. Don't think that's the reason to invest in a club when you've got another one available.
no,
All right,
because you have
guys.
to consider as well how many jerseys are being put on backs from sporting success. And I can tell you this, that especially over the last couple of years, you know, kids watching a Milan versus Inter game, 9 times out of 10, it's going to be Inter jerseys. If they were going to pick a team, they're going to be picking Inter. So
Yeah.
based on sporting
So,
success. So
Steve, thank you for watching and good luck to Newcastle. I hope we beat you, of course. But personally, I don't want us in the Europa League.
no,
Personally, I want us to have that squad and focus on Serie A because we might be able to do a little
if
bit of damage.
at least we can focus on top four.
Oh. Don't make me cry. All right, Shane, it's been a pleasure, sir.
Adios. Have a
Forza
good
Milan.
one, and Forza Milan, and we'll talk to you next week. See you, everyone. Bye.
Ciao.
Ciao.
Italia!